Hola, Yoli, buenos días. Con el audio apaga. Aló. Hola, hola. Hola, Yolicita, buenos días. ¿Cómo estás? Me ignoraron. Coli, no lo puedo atender, Golicito. Hijo. No,
Rosabel, buenos días. Tú eres la que saludaste, ¿cierto? Yo soy Blanca.
oye, temprano, ya súper temprano. Vamos a ver si funciona esto. No funciona la cámara. El video no funciona, no se puede buscar el video. Regulas. ficción. Hola, buenos días a todos.
Buenos días. Buenos días.
Muy buenos días para todos. Buenos días. Hola, buenos días a todos.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. No sé si es mi celular o qué, pero está sonando muy pasito. Ya le subí todo el volumen y el sonido es muy pasito. No sé si se puede pronto arreglar ese sentido, ese aspecto.
Yo escucho perfectamente.
Buenos
Yo también escucho perfectamente.
días. No sé si es mi celular. Debe ser porque estoy en el celular. No sé, voy a mirar entonces. Ya le subí todo el volumen y el sonido es muy pasito. No sé si se puede pronto arreglar ese sentido, ese aspecto.
Yo escucho.
Good morning, how are you? Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. You? Nice to see you.
Sorry, I think you have to activate your microphone first, because I can't hear you. Thank you very much, Norma. Thank you very much for this invitation. For us, it's really important to be with you, teachers. I say hi to everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay during these pandemic times. I know that teachers have to work a lot during these times, and it has been a little bit stressful for everybody. But fortunately, we have also been able to innovate in many ways and change our lives for positive things as well. From the Ministry of Education, I would like to say thank you for the invitation. Today we are going to be presenting a conference based on language skills and how teachers can promote strategies to teach students during these pandemic times in remote and asynchronous situations. The first thing before starting and before letting Tatiana speak in, I would like to share some information about the Ministry of Education. So Tatiana, would you please go to the first slide? I would like to share some information that is really important.
Is now joining.
Which is based on English from Home strategy that we have designed for teachers and students to have resources and strategies during the learning from home strategies from the Ministry of Education. The first one I would like to mention is Aprender Digital. In Aprender Digital, you can go at aprenderdigital.colombiaaprende.edu.co. And in that webpage, you're going to find several resources that we have designed in the past few years from the Ministry of Education. Those are PDFs and interactive resources that teachers can download, can print, and can also share with their students without any restriction, because basically those books belong to the Ministry of Education, and in that case belong to the nation, to all teachers. We have also partnered with Pearson. We have launched a collection of readers, which are basically books for reading in English, which have been adapted in terms of level of English and also in terms of age. Though you have to register on Colombia Aprende just to get familiar with these books. These are really important, and these have also listening exercises that you can share with your students. The second one is Biblioteca Digital. In Biblioteca Digital, we launched it 3 weeks ago, and since then we have shared more than 3,000 resources of reading in Spanish. But within that collection, we have shared also more than 180 books that teachers can share with their students and also can promote the learning of English. The third one is related to Talkative. Talkative has been a strategy that we have been promoting with all teachers, primary and secondary teachers, to promote intercultural practice of English, which is really important during these times, and also could also provide a safe space for teachers to share experiences, to share ideas, and also, of course, practice their English. We are going to have a second call for teachers, national call for teachers in September. So just follow our social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter of the Ministry of Education, so you can get familiar with the call, and you can also register for this second registration stage. And finally, I would like to talk about Be the One Challenge. I don't know if you are also familiar with this. Be the One Challenge has been an application that we published about 2 or 3 months ago. More than 190,000 people have downloaded this application, and right now we are promoting several strategies like descargatones. We have our first descargaton on June 2025, and more than 8,000 students connected to that session. We promoted several workshops on how to use the app, and we are going to have a second descargaton, which is going to be happening in last week of August. So again, you have to follow our social media to be aware of when exactly at what time are we meeting for this descargaton. We're going to have several surprises and several prizes as well for students who participate in these descargatones. As well, with the Ministry of Education also promotes webinars in which we promote several subjects, especially adapted for this situation in which the teachers have to change their practices. Yesterday we have a webinar about the use of Be the One Challenge as a tool for teachers to teach English during the pandemic times. And finally, also we are promoting our Inspiring Teachers program, which is a training teacher training program that we have been doing since last year and who has been really successful in the past 2 years. Tatiana, could you please go to the next slide? I would like to announce that based on Be the One Challenge, that we have launched 2 weeks ago a tool for teachers. You have to go to this address, colombiaaprende.edu.co/Be the One Challenge. In that website, you're going to find resources for teachers and for students, a pedagogical guide, and the link to enter to a dashboard that we have designed for teachers to support their students through the use of Be the One Challenge. You will be able to see the progress, participation, and also performance of these students using the application. It's a really good tool that I advise you to use. You can scan also the QR code. You have to be registered. So the first thing that you have to do is register using your cédula or your ID, and also the local location authority that you belong to. Again, I would like to thank you, all the teachers from Huila and from ASOPI that are with us right now. I would like to introduce Tatiana Gomez, who is really close to the Ministry of Education, who is supporting all the strategies also through the British Council, who is our partner in many of the activities that we develop. And Tatiana, thank you very much for being with us. I'm going to be here listening to you in case teachers have any questions. Luz is going to be attentive to the chat or to the comments on Facebook Live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. Well, first of all, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tatiana, as they were presenting me earlier. I'm very excited to be here with you guys today because for today, I want to explore a lot of different ways that hopefully we can leave today knowing a bit more or finding a bit more strategies that we can use to be able to teach the 4 skills, right? Reading, writing, listening, and speaking asynchronously and through distance learning. So first, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay, everyone is okay. So if you can either say, yes, okay, good, either through the chat or through Facebook Live, I'll know everyone is hearing me okay. All right, perfect. So to get started, yes, all right, perfect, thank you. All right, so to get started for today, let's go through the different stages of what we're going to see in today's chat. First, we're going to begin with what we know, okay? I want to know what you guys already know so we can make sure to focus on the things that we can learn more about. Second, we'll go into teaching practice alternatives. It'll be important for us so we can be able to learn different ways of how we can approach the same strategies that we've always done. Yes. Third, taking a look at overcoming challenges. As Carlos said, I think nowadays everyone is learning. Everyone is trying to figure out how we're going to teach online, how we're going to keep teaching our students remotely, and we're going to try to find ways to overcome those challenges. And then this will be the biggest part of our chat for today, which is best practices by skills. So we'll go through each one of the skills and see which ideas of how we can teach these. And finally, we will have a space for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you can write them in the chats, and Luz will be attentive to take note so that we can answer them at the end, okay? So before we get started, let's get ready. So first of all, please remember to mute your mics. I think everybody's already muted, so we're good. We're going to be managing our time together, right? So if you guys want to ask questions, be sure to ask them when you remember them so that way we can put them together and join in at the end with the Q&A section. Prepare a pen and paper to take notes. I know we're going digital these days. I know that everything seems to be digital, but it's always important to have a pen and paper so you can take notes of ideas that you really like. So if there's an idea that you see, that you like, that you want to use, just take note. You'll have it at hand, and it's easier to have it in your notebook than to go and look for a presentation or a video later on. Of course, we will be asking questions. So if there's anything very specific that you need to know, remember you can participate in the chat, or if there's any activity where you guys can join in, you can raise your hands as well. And if you are going to open your mic, or just in general, remember to find a quiet place, a place where we can concentrate and focus and be able to join in on the conversation. Now, I am curious about something. So, we are going to be doing activities today that require interaction, right? Because I want to hear you guys and, well, not necessarily hear you, but at least read you, right? So to do that, we are going to be using an application today. So I want to know who is on a computer, on a tablet, or on a cell phone. So here in the chat, can you guys please just write either the word computer, tablet, or cell phone, so I can have an idea of how what device you guys are connecting from. Perfect. So we have computers, laptops, computers. Okay, perfect. Yes. All right, great. iPhone. All right. So for those, so during the chat, I'm going to give you some instructions in a minute so you guys can connect, okay? And you can do this from 2 devices, either from your laptops or your cell phones. So I'll explain in a minute. So up to there, we've gone through. We're all ready. Of course, also get comfortable. So if you want a hot beverage, depending on where you are, get comfortable so we can have a really good chat today. All right, now let's begin. What do you know? So to collect this information, remember I just told you we're going to be connecting. So the way that we're going to connect is either get your smartphones, right? So I'm going to have mine here, or you can open a new tab on your computers. It's up to you. And to connect, you guys are going to do the following. So at the top, you have a link. It says polev.com/Tatiana Gomez 311, right? So polev.com. I'm writing it here for you guys in the chat just in case as well. Tatiana Gomez 311. So when you go into this poll, you'll be able to participate so we can all join in, right? So I'm going to do it as well from my phone so I can be able to join in with you guys. And the idea is that we're going to use the same link. So once you're in, don't close it for the rest of the chat, so that way we can participate in each of the interactive questions, okay? So you put it on your phone, and everybody should be going in. If it's working, if everything is okay, please let me know. Okay. Here we go. I'm doing it here as well. So once you're in, everybody's okay. We should have something like this. It'll ask you for your name. You can skip that part if you like. So you can either put your name or put skip. And once you do that, it will start to show you this slide. So you guys can see the same slide I am sharing, okay? So once you're there, we're going to try to answer the question. So it says, what would you like to learn about today? This is one of the things I wanted to know from you guys. There you go. So I see some of you are starting to share. So you can put your symbol. If you want tools, you can put it on the side of tools, or teaching strategies in the middle, or tips on the right side. So go ahead, you guys can start filling that out. As you're doing that, we are going to be seeing all 3, but we are, okay, good, almost everybody's on tools. We are going to be focusing on tools. So it'll be very interesting. I'll try to show you a few tools for each skill so that we can be able to keep learning. All right, wonderful. Remember, if anybody's having any trouble connecting, you can write to us in the chat. It's just basically going into the link at the top, right? And remember, we're going to be using that link throughout the whole session. All right, so up to there, I see most people are in tools and teaching strategies. That's perfect because that's where we're going to be focusing on today. So now we're going to continue, and I see a lot of you are still voting. That's great. All right, we're going to continue to the next slide. And in the next slide, we have another interactive activity. But this time, I want to know how you guys are feeling with this. How comfortable are you with teaching remotely? So the same thing on your screen, it should have changed, right, to the new one. So it'll update, you see, just like that. So now I want you to put the symbol. Where do you guys feel? I felt very comfortable and the transition was super easy. So over there on 0, right? Then we have, I'm somewhat comfortable, but still need some extra help. Or on the other spectrum, I feel overwhelmed and I want to learn more. So let's see where everybody's at. Okay. Very good. Okay, so most people are more towards the center. I like that. So the idea then for today is to hopefully help you get, those extra tips and strategies that you need. Okay? Perfect. All right, guys, thank you so much for participating. Remember to keep that page open. We're going to have a few more things coming up. So now before we even get started, I'm asking here about teaching remotely. So just briefly, I'm going to go through the quick differences of what all of these teaching spectrums are. So we're all used to teaching our face-to-face lessons where we went to class, we were sitting with our students in the same time, in the same place, and we had an in-person lesson with them. All the way on the other side of teaching, we have online teaching and learning. Now, a lot of people are referring to what we're doing right now as online learning, but it is important to mark the difference a little bit. Now, online teaching and learning refers to courses that are carefully designed, carefully structured. They have a systematic model for design and development, right? And they offer some levels of complexity and alternatives for teachers. So that sounds like something that's planned out with time, right? Unfortunately, the situation that we're in right now doesn't allow us to necessarily plan an online course, right? So that leaves us with the middle, where it says blended teaching and learning, which is usually where some universities or schools put some of their content in the face-to-face lessons, or they offer it through face-to-face lessons, and then they have the other side where they offer some of their content on online platforms. So you have all of these three things. Now, the reality that we're facing right now is not necessarily any of these, right? Why? Because right now we're in a temporary transition. But the reality is that we need to plan for the future. So any skills that Hi, can you hear me? I'm back. Sorry about that. So any skills that you guys have or learn during this temporary transition, right, towards a online learning, then we can use in the future, because we don't know what the future education will look like yet. Who knows? It may be blended. So any skills that we learn right now will help us towards the future, okay? So if all of this is correct, then what we have to realize is that there's another version of education, which is the one that we're actually using right now, which is a temporary remote teaching and learning situation. And in some cases, they're actually referring to it as an emergency remote teaching situation. So it's important here to recognize that this is a temporary transition, but any skills, again, any skills that we learn in this transition is going to help us as we move forward to this new education that we still don't know what it's actually going to look like, right? All right, so now that we've gotten our basic definitions out of the way, we know, how you guys are feeling right now. Let's go into some teaching practice alternatives. So before I give you my tools and my strategies, I want to know what you guys have been doing. So we're going to go back to our site, right? And you guys are going to see that it's updated. It will ask you for a response, so you guys can write there. What have you guys been doing in class so far? So is there any tools or strategies that you guys have found that have really motivated your students or engaged them? And I think this is important to share so other teachers can see what's working for you, right? So as you go through, you guys can write your answers and share. Whenever you've finished writing your answer, just press submit, okay? Good, Kahoots. Kahoots is a great one. Yes. All right, very good. Let's see what else. Quizzes. Yes, yes, yes. Quizzes is great. Moodle platforms. Yes, remember I was telling you guys earlier about online learning. So when we talk about online learning, Moodle platforms is great. I have used puzzles, interactive games, Educa Play. Ooh, Educa Play is amazing. It's very easy to set up your quizzes and games. Very good. Using PowerPoint presentations to explain the topics, using videos and web pages. Great. Google Classroom, yes. Audio recordings and videos. Oh, I haven't heard of this last one, Linoit.com. Okay, I'm going to check that one out after the session. Perfect. All right, so you guys can keep writing there so we can keep seeing them. But I do want to focus on something very important. You guys are already doing amazing work, right? And I want you guys to realize that and recognize that. So you're already using tools and strategies. And I imagine most of you have gone online or asked friends, what else we could use to keep our students engaged. So everything that you guys have mentioned here are perfect, are great tools. Now, there's one thing I haven't asked you guys about yet. I've asked you what you've done, what you guys are feeling, but what about your students and your families? So I want you guys to take a minute. Again, we're going to point at which one. How do you think your students and families are feeling right now with this transition, right? Have they been happy? Good. Okay, so I see some marks on the happy faces, right? On okay faces. I think it's been a challenge for everyone, right? And I think every family and every student will be different. But the more we learn as teachers, the better we can start getting our students to the greener side of the spectrum, right? And get them happier and more engaged. All right, perfect. Okay, guys, good. Now, to wrap up this part, I just want to know, so you guys have already mentioned this one. I'm going to skip this one for now. We're going to go now to overcoming challenges. Now, as we know, the situation is not typical, right? It is a challenge that we should overcome, but I want to see how we can overcome that. So first of all, resources. Carlos mentioned a few of them in the beginning. We'll be focusing on how you can use them with our tips and strategies as well during the session, but resources is key. We do have resources out there, and there are many resources that we may not realize that we have, right? So it's kind of just trying to find what we can use. Second, access to devices and connectivity. This is a big challenge around the country and even around the world, because I've talked to teachers from other countries as well, and it's not a unique situation to Colombia. It's a reality. So we have to be aware of the access to devices and connectivity that our students have so that we can plan accordingly and choose the correct resources, right? Now, the other one is digital preparedness. We can choose really amazing tools, but if our students and families are not prepared to be able to access, use, and feel comfortable using these tools to communicate, then it will bring us an extra challenge. So if we recognize the limitations that we have with access to devices and digital preparedness, we can choose the correct resources to be able to move forward. Now, one thing that I do want to stress here and focus is that when we're overcoming challenges, one of the biggest things that I want you guys to remember is that we should collaborate as a community to see what works. Spaces like these, or WhatsApp groups, or Facebook groups, anything that allows us to be able to share and see what's working for other teachers can help us overcome those challenges together. I've always said we are a teaching tribe, and as a teaching tribe, we have to stick together, right? So if we're able to create those communities, right, within your own teaching communities, it could be your school, it could be your region, it could be your Secretary of Education, for example, but those tools, by sharing that, we'll be able to learn more and move forward. So my invitation for today is, even after we're finished, start creating or enriching or even improving those communities to make sure that we're practicing, that we're sharing the practices and tips and tools and strategies that are working for us, and then they could help other teachers do the same. Okay? So now we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to take a look at best practices by skills. So this is where we're going to take a little bit, and we're going to focus on all of the different skills and tools and strategies that we can use. I'll be giving you some ideas in each one. So we're going to start with receptive skills, and we're going to begin with our listening. So now in listening, we have two things. One, make it short and make it active, right? So when I say make it short, think of yourself. Imagine if you guys were studying German or Italian or Portuguese or French, and someone sent you an audio of 10 minutes to listen to. Would you stay engaged? Would you listen all the way until the end, right? Or what would make you listen all the way until the end? So the two tips are very easy. One, make it short. Try to keep your students engaged, so be sure that the listening activities that you're sharing with them are either clips or short segments, okay? Now, other than that, I want you to also try to think of how you can make your activities active. So the difference is, if I have the students listen to an activity and they're just listening and they go through the whole activity and then they finish and then they do an activity, right, or a task, then this activity was a passive listening activity. What we want them to do, especially because they're at home, they're not with you, right, they're at home, they could get distracted, they maybe didn't understand it correctly, is to give them tasks and strategies to do during the listening. That means you're trying to get them engaged and active all the way through, from the beginning to the end of the listening task. Okay, so those are my 2 tips for listening. Make it short, make it active. Now, how can we do this? Okay, I'm going to give you guys 2 tips. One, you can use activities like a self-paced Pear Deck. There are lots of different activities or tools out there. Pear Deck is a really nice one that allows you to create a presentation on Google Slides. And what you can do is be able to send it to your students. And when you send it to them, it's a self-paced activity. Now, in this self-paced activity, you can add audios. So you could have a listening activity. As they're listening, they could be completing an exercise on the slide. So this can make it that active and engaging activity that you're looking for. The second thing is audios for podcasts. Now, you can create your own. You can have students create their own and then share them, or you can get ready-made podcasts, right? So remember, there's always lots of content out there. So when you have these audios for podcasts, you can give instructions to students. If they don't have access to devices or connectivity, just give the right instructions. So give them tasks from the beginning that will allow them to be active throughout the podcast, and it'll make it interesting for them, okay? Now, the idea of podcast is because a podcast has a quite different format, and it's more engaging and entertaining. So, yeah, it does make a big difference when we're trying to get students to feel like they're excited about content, okay? All right, perfect. So now we're going to keep going, and we've done our listening activities. We're going to go into our receptive skills, but reading. For reading, I have 2 tips for you. So 1, creative staged out writing. Why? If we can integrate tasks, we can have writing tasks that are staged out, and then at the end, we can have actually reading tasks that where students are reading their peers' work, right? This makes it meaningful because the student knows it's not just the teacher who's going to be looking at, the text or the writing, but it's going to be my peers, it's going to be my colleagues, it's going to be my classmates who are going to be looking at it. So now it has a different purpose, right? And that goes to our next one, which is peer feedback and collaborative. If they're going through different reading exercises and they write out, for example, a short summary, right? Again, integrating skills, then we're trying to get them to be collaborative as a whole. Now, we can do this in different types of applications, so let's take a look at those. These 2 I love. I absolutely love the first one, especially for people who like comics, and I think it's an easy format to get students to write and read. So on this website called Make Beliefs Comics, you can actually have students make their own comics, or you can make a comic based on the topic and target language that you're seeing in your lessons. And then you can have the other students read those comics. This website is very easy to use, and it really allows them to be very creative, and it's easy for them to send it to you directly to your email from the site. So it's a very easy way to go about writing and then reading. Now, the second part is active reading on Google Docs. Now, remember, Google Docs has a lot of additional features that can help people be collaborative, from comments to going into an editing format, right? So if they're reading, where you have a reading and it's collaborative, students could make annotations, conclusions, highlight vocabulary, right? And this will make it an active reading activity so that students can really engage in the reading from beginning to end. So make it interesting through a comics, or make it engaging and collaborative through a Google Doc. So up to there, we've been able to see the receptive skills, listening and reading. We've gone through 4 different websites or strategies and ways that you can use reading in your lessons. And we are now going to remind you guys, remember Carlos mentioned these in the beginning. So through the resources that el Ministerio de Educación has provided for all the teachers nationwide, we have Aprender Digital and we have the Biblioteca Digital. So these are additional resources that we can have our students use. So remember to implement the different strategies we just talked about. 1, try to get those students to use the material but have active reading. 2, how can we get them to engage in a more interactive way if they have access and connectivity? Maybe shifting the text to a Google Doc or shifting the text to any other platforms that allow that interactivity, okay? So up to there, I think we've been able to take a look at those. I want to know if anybody has any questions. So remember, if you do, you can write them in the chat. You can write them in the messages or comments on Facebook if you're watching through there, and Luz will start collecting them so we can be able to answer your questions at the end. So up to here, we finished with our receptive skills. Now, we're going to move on into our productive skills. So with our productive skills, we're going to start off with speaking. Okay, so let's start off with this one. Now, in speaking, you know that sometimes our students feel that they don't have enough vocabulary or enough language to be able to speak or communicate clearly. So one thing that we can do is offer them that support system, right? Offer them prompts or phrases, because now we're not there to help prompt them. So offer them prompts or phrases that they can use where the target language is what they have to complete or fill out, right? And make it relevant and meaningful, right? The same thing. If it's something that they're just sending to you, well, it's important they're getting a grade, but if they're going to be using it for something else, to share information that they feel is important with their colleagues or their peers, then of course it'll make it relevant and meaningful. Or even just exploring topics or talking about topics that they like and that they prefer. So how can we share this? 2 things. 1, of course, WhatsApp. I don't remember who said it the other day, but I think WhatsApp has become our learning management system. It's our new LMS. Because if we don't have access to Moodle, like you guys mentioned before, or if we don't have access to a Google Classroom or to Meet, right, like Teams, then it becomes more challenging. How can students give you this information? Because we do want them to practice all 4 skills. So just sending audios or videos through WhatsApp is a great tool to have either in a group chat or just to the teacher. Now, the one that I absolutely love is Flipgrid. Right? So with Flipgrid, we have audios and videos forum. So for those of you that are not familiar with this platform, think of it like a normal forum, right? Where people can share ideas, they can, be able to respond, but then it's collaborative. And but the difference is that people are sharing audios and videos. So you can even have rating, which also goes towards peer collaboration. So students can upload their video and audio, even from their phone. They don't have to have a computer. And this will lead to communication and peer feedback, depending on the activities that you want to use. So I think this one is a really good one, simply because it also mimics, and it's very similar to those platforms like social media platforms that students are so comfortable with nowadays. So it is like, it gives them that feeling of being able to add, emojis or being able to add filters and things like that to make it creative and engaging for them. So these are just some ideas for speaking. Now we're going to go to our last skill, which is writing. In writing, as I mentioned before, we have collaborative writing. So again, I'll give you some tools in terms of where you can do collaborative writing and some ideas. And second, storytelling. I definitely think storytelling is a very, very engaging and interesting way for students to write with a purpose, right? So they could tell stories about themselves or about others. And what you could also do is be able to give them resources so that they can tell stories. Now, I'm going to share 2 links with you here in the chat because I think it's quite interesting to see how images and video references can help. The first link that you guys are going to find are story cards. So basically, the story cards show 5 or 6, or you can choose how many images. It'll show you images, and based on those images, students should write a story, but it generates it automatically. And the second one is a generator. It's a question generator, and each time that you click, it offers you a new question. So being able to randomize it in a certain way becomes exciting as well for students. Like, oh, let's see, which one is going to be mine? Or, or even if you're just creating the instructions for your students, you can use this, get a screenshot, and be able to create a very engaging activity in a short amount of time, okay? So this one is a really, really interesting one. Now, how can we get our students to write collaboratively? Well, we have first Jamboard. So Jamboard is a collaborative board that you can use. It's from Google, right? So what's interesting about this is for those of you who are using Google Classroom or Google Drive to share files with your students, this actually creates the Jamboard and saves it on your Google Drive. So that way you can keep all of the information that you've been doing on your boards. Something that I like about Jamboard is you can have students working just on one slide, or you can assign a slide to each student. So that way you could have, for example, 20, 30, 40 slides, and each student can write on their own, right? Or they can go and see their classmates to see what they're doing, get ideas. So it creates like that collaborative feeling to it, right? You could also assign one board per group, for example. So even if in the call, you don't have them separated, right? Or even if it's asynchronous, you could easily say, okay, group 1, write the students' names, and then they know that that's their slide where they can do the activity. Now, what I like about this one as well is that they can add images, so that can create like a more interesting writing exercise as well. And then the second one, collaborative writing on Google Docs. Well, I think we've all used Google Doc at this point because of the new contingency and everything that's going on. This is a great tool for collaborative writing. You can actually have students go in and use the feature of editing or suggesting, because this will allow you to see what corrections they think should be made on a peer's work, right? Instead of just writing the comments on the side. So I would say it's worth exploring all of those different features so that you can really make a collaborative writing exercise and make it fun and easy for students and be able to get them to see, to use or to give peer feedback to their classmates. So up to there, we've been able to go through then the 4 skills. Now we are finishing up this section by reminding you guys also of the conversation clubs that Ministerio de Educación is using. All of this helps us because if we're able to get ideas even from the classes that we attend, then it'll help us to also participate and give those ideas to our students, right? So up to here, we've been able to go through the 4 resources for the 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Hopefully you guys have taken away some strategies and some ideas. Now, I just want to take a minute. We're going to take a moment. We've talked a lot about different things so far. Now, we are going to have a Q&A section. So kind of practicing our mindfulness a little bit. Let's take a moment, kind of think of what it is that we've seen, what we're doing in our classrooms right now, and be able to calm ourselves and get to our concluding part of today's session. Take this moment also to write any questions that you may have before we move forward. Okay, so let's take that moment for mindfulness real quick. There you go. All right. Now, remember, these moments of mindfulness are also important for your students. If we get overwhelmed as adults, they may also get overwhelmed. So in your lessons, try to include those moments of just peace, quiet, trying to get everybody to kind of just reflect for a moment and not just receive information, okay? All right, guys. Well, first of all, thank you so much for participating so far. We're going to start concluding our session for today. And to do that, I want to know if you guys, if this reminds you of anything. So I want you to look at the picture and either in the chat or in the comments tell me, what does this picture feel like? Like, what does it remind you of? Let's see. Let's see if anybody guesses the word that I want to use. Anybody? Let's see. Homework, yes. Okay, homework, good. Do you think this person is doing the homework relaxed and calm, or are they doing it last minute? What do you guys think? Yes, having a baby and studying at the university, loneliness, preparing a class, midnight, working until midnight, preparing a lesson, last minute. Yes, you guys got exactly what I wanted to do with this picture. That is it. What happens? Right now, a lot of us could be feeling like this with the changes and the challenges that we're facing. And there's a special word in English, which is actually called cram. When I cram, a last minute cramming session, or I crammed studying last night. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. So when I cram, it's basically when I study, Angela. So when I study last minute and you're cramming to make sure that you pass the test, to make sure that you finish the homework, right? As teachers, I think that we are feeling that right now with everything that's going on, right? But the reality is that we can take a moment. We can think, we can breathe, we can relax. And in that moment, look at all of the tools and strategies that we've talked about today. Look at all of the tools and strategies that you guys mentioned in the beginning. So I want you guys to remember this word, but not in the sense of we're thrown into a situation, right, where we have to cram last minute and prepare and get everything so that our students can keep learning. But we can do this in an organized way. And at the end of the day, I have this picture here, which is never stop learning, or never ever stop learning, right? And why is this important? Because at this moment, remember I told you guys there are different ways of educating. And at this moment, we're learning a lot, right? And as we learn more, we can prepare our students better. So it's very important to be able to see how we can use this cramming moment that we have, but to our benefit, right? And as an opportunity of learning. And again, everything that we learn here is not going to stop when the pandemic stops. Everything we learn here, we're going to continue using in our academic careers and lives. So now let's take a look at why I use this word. So cram, for the C, I want you guys to first try to create materials. Remember that no one knows your students better than you, right? So if no one knows your students better than you, you're the best and the ideal person to create materials for them that will engage them in moments where we're not there physically to motivate them and to engage them, okay? Second, we can be as creative as we want. Now, careful. Being creative doesn't mean being super tech savvy. I have teachers that have been super creative by putting a board behind them and teaching class with a board. So we don't have to confuse synchronous and asynchronous or distance learning with knowing or always using technology, okay? Second, the R. So the R is reusable. I really want to emphasize on this one. Every material that you make could be reusable for you or for a colleague. So remember what we were talking about earlier about being collaborative, right? So if this is true, then we can make resources thinking about how they can be reused, how they can be recycled, or even adapted, right? The second R is resourceful. Everyone has something that will help them to teach, right? So what we have to do is not stay on, oh, well, I don't have this or I don't have that. No, what do I have? And then how do I use what I have to make the best possible classes for my students? I was watching a video the other day of teachers, and one of them didn't have a board. So they literally put their camera in front of their washing machine, and that's what they used as a board. Resourcefulness, right? Second, adaptable. Because we have this opportunity of teaching remotely and asynchronously, we can actually do something that we usually can't do in our face-to-face classes, which is, one, adapt and personalize lessons for our students. Because now you're giving them tasks where they can actually make decisions, or it could be personalized and it's not generating so much extra work for you as a teacher. So think about how you can adapt activities with just one tweak of an instruction and then personalize it for your students' learning benefit. Like I mentioned before, make it active. If it's reading, if it's writing, if it's listening, if it's speaking, try to make it as active as possible so students are actively engaging with the activity rather than just reading or listening and then giving an answer or a task. And finally, make it meaningful. We've mentioned this before. Look at who's the audience. What's it for? Are your students actually going to be excited about it? Right? Try to make it as meaningful as possible. And lastly, multimedia. We know that in this kind of format, multimedia will help us reach and engage our students even more, okay? So when I say multimedia, it's two things. One, obviously in the creation of your materials, but two, also in the communication that you have with your students. Let's say that you have a WhatsApp group with your students and you send them a text message with the instructions. It'll be a lot more valuable for them if you send them a quick video of you explaining it to them, and then maybe the text just to make sure they understood it, okay? But that difference of them seeing you will change everything in how they receive the instruction and how engaged they are with the activity. So guys, these are my final points of things that I wanted you to keep in mind when creating and going down this path of asynchronous or distance learning. All of the activities I gave you here are things that you don't need to do during a synchronous session, but where you can have your students do it in their own time, asynchronously. But if you notice, most of them are still collaborative. So I think that feeling of community is still necessary, even more so in today's reality of education. Because a lot of students, I have my son. My son is actually in the next room studying right now. He's in school. And, when they're sitting alone in a room studying by themselves, they need to still feel that sense of community. And we can give that to them by giving them activities that can generate that community and generate that collaboration among themselves, right? And just remember, they're still trying to learn. And a lot of them are still like, we want to do this. So how can we make that easier for them? So guys, before we get into our questions, I do have one last invitation, and it's remember that collaboration and building community that I mentioned before. I wanted to share this picture specifically because there are teachers all around your city, your department, the country, and the world that are living exactly the same thing that you are. Right? We're all going through the same situation, the same challenges, and we're all, get this, yes, we are all overcoming it. That's the reality, because you guys are still teaching and we're still trying to find ways to do it. And spaces like these that we have with asociaciones and Secretarías de Educación and Ministerio de Educación, all of these things help us to keep building community. So I do want to thank the people who have organized this event, that invited me here, because I think that it helps us to really create that space. Now, the last invitation is just remember, so if we're trying to create that community, create a repository in your school, or create that community where you can share ideas and share thoughts. Hopefully this has been useful for you guys and you've enjoyed it. Now we're going to go into seeing if you guys have any questions or doubts, anything that comes to mind, and we'll take it from there, okay? Thank you guys so much for listening. So while you're thinking of your questions, right, just start thinking, see what else I can help with. There you go. You're very welcome. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and liked it. Let's see if we have... Yes, someone wrote here in the chat, remember schools didn't close, the buildings did. That's super important. Okay, and I had one link that I want to share with you guys. So as you guys heard in the beginning, I'm the founder and director of ELT Think Tank, and on our website I wanted to share with you, we have a page full of resources, okay? So if you visit the website that I just shared in the link, you guys can find apps and websites. This is a Padlet, which is also another great tool you can use with your students. You can find tons of different apps and resources there. This was curated by Rodrigo, which is someone on my team who works with me very closely, and I don't know what I would do without him in ELT Think Tank. But I think that these resources can really help you to keep learning and improving. And yeah, if we can do anything else, remember, we're here to help. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Luz?
Anna, thank you very much for this enriching presentation. And I guess all our teachers have enjoyed and have took close note to everything that you have said today. I haven't seen any questions so far here, but if you have, you can write them down now, or if you want, you can raise your hand and we can talk about it.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's do something. While they're doing that, I'm going to invite you guys to use the last interactive session. Did you find this session interesting and challenging enough? Did you enjoy it? So again, remember I told you guys not to close it out yet. So here you guys can vote. I really appreciate any feedback that we get, so that helps us. It said just right. Okay, that was the idea. Now, you can follow us and find us on social networks if you need any more tips and strategies. And yeah, I hope that we can see each other again sometime. Yes, I'm glad everybody said it was just right. Thank you guys for joining us. Okay, here we have a question. How can I take advantage of time to teach my topics and include storytelling? Okay, Angela, so that's a good question. Okay, we're starting to get some questions, so I'll start with these. So the first one is, first, a good way to take advantage of time is to give your students asynchronous work. Right? What does it mean? That you give them tasks that they can easily do on their own before the lesson. It could be recognizing key vocabulary, sending them an image just to take notes of what it is that they're going to write about. And then in the session, have them do the writing on that pre-task. This is it's not full flip learning, but it's a sort of flip learning methodology. And I think it really helps. I think as we went over today, it's a lot of times we feel that the activities that we do in class is too much. So a good way to segment or to chunk the learning is to separate the learning activities, to do some before the lesson, where in that before they could be asynchronous, have students in their own time and at their own pace learn something before coming to class, and then in the session go in depth. Okay, so that was that question. Does anyone want to speak? I heard somebody open their mic.
I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Sometimes I feel that there are so many resources, so many things to do. I'm going to open my camera. Hi.
Hi.
But I have the feeling that I do lots of things, but I'm not sure if beyond the camera, beyond the class, they are really enjoying the class, or they are really working. So I don't know. I have always that feeling that I do a lot, but I don't know if
the impact.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So there are two things there. One, there's something that I really like to keep in mind when I'm teaching, and it's accountability. So try to find resources or activities that allow students to have accountability, which means that you can track everything they're doing, right? Because if you can track it, know exactly, if they're actually doing it or not, and if they are being responsive to the activities that you're doing, or if they're just kind of flipping through. There's a really good one called Actively Learn. For those of you that are in high school, I wouldn't recommend it for lower levels, but for high school, Actively Learn is a really good website to do this. There are a few out there, but I think, just trying to find resources that allow to track what the students are doing will help. That's one. And two, something that you said in the beginning, I think a lot of times we feel that we have too many resources and we're kind of overwhelming ourselves and our students. So I think keep it simple. A lot of times, that those smaller things and those simpler things make bigger impact in our students. So I think it's just a matter of kind of gauging our students, and also don't be afraid to ask. I mean, look at what I did here in today's session. Ask, right? Ask your students, how are they feeling, what they like, what they don't like. You can do it in a way, these technological tools allow us to do this in a way that is, how do you say that? Anonymous. There you go. That's anonymous. So they can feel comfortable telling the teacher, no, I didn't really like this, or teacher, I didn't like that. And they don't feel like, oh, she's going to feel bad because she's going to know it's from me, right? So you take advantage of tools like those, like exit tickets at the end of your sessions, just to see if the information was clear. And the last tip for that one, also record your sessions, because some students in this format need more help. So if they can go back and watch the video, it will help them to really understand it. So it's kind of supporting all of the levels of learning. I lost track of the questions, Luz. I don't know if there's any other questions there.
Yes, I think there is something that they are worried about, and it's could you suggest some offline websites for students who don't have connectivity? And I think this one is like a question for 2 or 3 teachers. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are actually a few websites that you can use with offline resources. Well, Kahoot actually has one of them, and Plickers also has another one. So I'm going to write those words here so you guys can follow them. Plickers, Kahoot. Kahoot has an offline version. There are a few strategies that I've seen recently where you have interactive PDFs. So there are a few websites that you can look for interactive PDFs where the student downloads it. It could be on their phone or online, and they can write directly on the PDF, so they don't need internet, right? I'm going to, if you guys want, what I can do as well is I can compilate a few of those and send them to the Secretaría Neiva, and then they can share them with you, because we do have a bank of resources, and I can look there to see what other ones are there. But there are, just so you know, there are resources that you can use and that allow students to work still in an engaging way, but offline. Okay, so I'll share those with you through the Secretaría. Amparo is raising her hand, right? So Amparo, please go ahead. You can open your mic and ask your question.
You.
Hi.
I thank you. Hi. I thank you. You chat. It's interesting, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
But I have many questions about the participation of some teachers, and I think there are a lot of prepared teachers who can play a role in flesh at school. Schools every day in Colombia are being excluded from English education. I mean the school themselves, not the teachers. I think teachers need more interactions in flesh. I think feelings in the English teaching learning are important, and the personal touch between teachers and students is needed. And I think this will never pass on. What do you think about it?
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a very important reflection of what you're saying. I actually agree with you. I am a very big fan of technology. I'm a very big fan of this, but I completely agree with you. It will never replace me going to a conference. I'll be honest. For those of you that have maybe seen me in a conference before, you'll notice that I'm usually going around and I walk and I go here and I come closer to participants, and those things make a difference, right? So it's a reality that we can't ignore. To be honest. So I think that at this point, it's an emergency remote learning situation. And because it's an emergency, we have to try to see how we can overcome it. So I think in the meantime, it's trying to find ways where we can mimic or recreate that relationship, that face-to-face relationship that we usually have with our students. And one of the ways to do that was, like I said before, of sending a video with the instructions rather than a text, or creating an avatar of yourself so that students can still see you, right? Little things like that make a difference. Now, once the contingency is over and the pandemic is over and hopefully things go back to normal, whatever normal is, I think it'll be important for us to reevaluate those things. But I think that those things require a few things. One, as teachers, we can also make suggestions. We can go work with our teams. We can make changes in our classroom, and we can work with our close-knit teams in our schools. And then we can extend that to associations, to Secretarías de Educación. I've worked with a lot of projects with Ministerio de Educación and British Council, and I've seen some amazing projects that teachers have come up with. And because they've taken the risk, because it's a risk, of escalating it, you know, and getting more people involved, it's grown into things that have impacted the whole school or even the whole region. So I think for now, it's a matter of creating community as much as we can. And second, reevaluating what's next in education once we go back to a new normal after the COVID-19. I hope that kind of answered your question. Unfortunately, it's a very big reflection, so I'm not sure if I can answer it, if I can give a full answer, but I hope that helps a little bit.
Thanks a lot.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Tatiana, for this presentation, and thank you for the Secretary of Education of Huila and Neiva and all the teachers here. We just copy again the links to check your attendance. Here you have the information about Tatiana. As Carlos said at the beginning, Tatiana is very close to the Ministry of Education, and she's always very welcome to share all her resources and experiences with all the teachers here. So once again, thank you very much for attending this session and for sharing this moment with us. And Tatiana, again, from the Ministry of Education, it has been a great moment for us and for all the teachers. Thank you
guys for having me. And here, just in case anybody has any additional questions afterward, you can also find my email and our website, just in case you have any other questions, okay? Hi. Okay, I saw another question from, okay, so I'll just answer this last one then. What do I think of TikToks? Well, I actually like TikToks. I think that we should adapt to what our students are also doing without going crazy. I think that you can adapt TikToks to be educational. I actually saw one. My son is interested in thermodynamics, which is not an easy topic, and I found a TikTok. I don't know what they're called because I don't use it, but a TikTok user, right? And basically all she does is explain thermodynamics in short TikTok videos. So it could be interesting if you use it in the right way, just like any other tool. I mean, about a year ago, people would have said WhatsApp was ridiculous for teaching, right? But now things change, right? So yeah, I would say it's interesting to look at it. Just have to be careful of how you use it, I guess. Okay? All right, guys. Well, it was wonderful talking to everyone today. Remember, if you need any additional follow-up questions with these two, I have one homework, which is to send offline tools. So I'll send those through the necessary channels so that they get to you. Okay? Bye, everybody. Have a good evening. Have a good day and a good evening. Bye.
Okay, Tatiana, thank you very much. I think that all the people who attended this interesting talk were very motivated, and these type of resources are going to be very, very useful for all of us in our classes. Thanks also Carlos from the Ministry of Education for supporting us with this talk. Thanks to Luz for being very kind in having all of us informed about the activities and in helping SOPI in all this process of organizing this first virtual event. I have some information for you all, but I also want to thank teachers who attended the conference and also those of you who asked questions which are very important to enrich our profession. I have a lot of comments in the chat from the meeting and also in Facebook Live, and I think that the 100% of us were very motivated. So Aranza, teacher Aranza was asking us to have the recording of this presentation. For sure, we're going to have that in YouTube as soon as we finish this Facebook Live transmission. We are going to download the recording and we're going to put it in our channel in YouTube, right? So there are some formats for filling which are related to the attendance to this event. So in this meeting and also in Facebook Live, we have the attendance from Secretaría de Educación Municipal and Secretaría de Educación Departamental. So please, teachers who belong to these secretaries of education, don't forget to fill in the information. That is very important. And there is also a requirement from the Secretary of Education. And also we need to actually favor to fill the survey about this conference. So please don't forget, because that is important for us to know your impression about the organization and everything related to this event. And in that you also have the possibility to give us some information about the possible following topics that we can take into account for the following events. For members of ASOPI, don't forget that this afternoon we have our second part of this Congress, and that is at 2 p.m. That is for members of ASOPI. Don't forget to check again the information we sent you through the emails. That activity is going to be from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. We are going to have Monica from Sharing Materials with a very important topic which is related to teaching with our hearts. And also next August the 6th, we have another virtual event that is related to Tatiana's talk, because that is related to some tools that we can use in our teaching process. That is going to be given by Paul Ponce from Sharing Materials. That activity is going to be held from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Only members, yeah, the activities that we have organized for this afternoon and for the 6th of August is just for members of ASOPI. But we are ready to receive your registrations. So if you want to be part of ASOPI, for sure you can go through our Facebook profile, to our Facebook page. You also have all the information related to ASOPI. We have everything related to our events, the boards of directors, and everything related to that. Also, you have the format that you can use to register. Okay, so I think it's time to leave. Thanks again to Carlos, Tatiana, Luz, Rosarito, Ederle, for all the support you always give us. Thanks, colleagues, for being part of this virtual activity. Thank you very much. Hope we can see soon again, physically, to give big hugs. Take care.
Entonces,
Sure.